begin? We're all looking for the promised land. And in the end, we just need someone to hold our hands. Everybody needs some kind of refuge, something to run to, someone who loves you. I'll be the light guiding you through the night when the stars just refuse to shine. And I'll be your shelter, that safe place to hide, your sanctuary.
Hi everybody, welcome back to Everybody is Addicted. Today's guest is Joyce, and she has graciously come on to share her story about how addiction has affected her life. So I'm going to give it over to Joyce to let her tell us about her life and her story.
So nice to be with you, Jasmine.
Nice to meet
So
you.
I've been sober since August 20th, 1990. And this year, if I don't drink or use between now and August, I will celebrate 35 years sober, which is, pretty
A
awesome.
feet, a feet and a half.
Right. So I got sober at age 40. And so I just recently celebrated my 75th birthday. And my drinking was, I go to a lot of recovery meetings, and my story is not like the stories I hear today. I didn't really start drinking until I was 20. Um, and I didn't stop till I was 40. So I gave it 20 good years. You know what I mean? Once I got into it, I really was pretty dedicated to trying to be loaded every day. Um, and one of the things I did during that time is I married my college sweetheart, and he and I started a record store after we graduated. We had been working in a record store in college.
Interesting. That's interesting.
Yeah, and so it was in the back of a head shop. Do you know what a head shop is?
Yes,
So
I'm Canadian.
I don't know what they call them in Canada. So
Yeah, they call them that here too.
got it. So yeah, so it was in the back of a head shop, but eventually we became the head shop, and that's a whole big story that's in my book that I recently wrote called Evolution of a Baby Boomer: Life Beyond Sex, Drugs, and Rock and Roll.
Where can we find that
That book
also?
is everywhere. It's
Okay.
on Amazon, it's on Barnes and Noble, it's everywhere. If you had a USA library card, you could listen to it for free in the audiobook version.
I'll
Um,
put it in the show notes too, but I
you
just wanted people to hear it because sometimes people don't read everything, right? So,
got you, of course, sure. But yeah, so the book came out about not quite a year ago, and it's in audiobook, and it's in paperback, and it's an ebook. And the thing is, while I was drinking and using, I started singing in a band. And so a lot of the story in the book is about how this happened, and I wrote a song about it, and here are some of the lyrics. But if you actually are listening to the audiobook, I say this happened and I wrote a song about it, and a recording of my band playing that song comes in. And we were like a new wave band, and we opened for the Go-Go's, and we opened for Meatloaf. I don't
that's crazy. I know who all they are. My dad was a music like person, so
Yeah,
I
okay.
have those records still.
Okay, good. You
I
raised
might
your
even
right.
have yours. I don't know.
Oh, probably not, but I actually just gave a flash drive with all my band's songs to a guy today at Universal Music. He's trying to get it all on the streaming services and whatnot. But
Yeah.
um, anyway, so um, since we owned our own business, that's how I would just like decide what I wanted to drink before I went to work. and I would just bring it to work with me. So some days
Mm.
I'd be behind the counter selling somebody a Led Zeppelin album, and I'd be drinking screwdrivers. And another day I might be drinking
And
beer. And
in that atmosphere, it's like they're like, oh, she's cool. She's having a drink, you know? Like
exactly,
they think it's like cool to do that. Like a
yeah,
cool, like that's the sort of go to because, you know, she's cool, right? Kind of
party
thing.
girl. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I would drink on the job. I was the buyer for the bongs and for the roach clips and the, rolling papers and whatnot. And
Yeah.
so I would often go, the people who brought the catalogs with all this stuff in it would take me out and get me high during business hours. We I was in Indianapolis, Indiana, which is in the middle of the US, and it's fairly conservative, and it was kind of rural where our store was. We were close to a military base, but anyway, we'd get in the car and just drive out in the country and get high and come back, and I'd go behind the counter and, work my shift loaded. And
The
it was
head
fun.
shop, right? Well,
Exactly. Yeah, just I'm playing loud music and I'm selling people their
they're
bongs.
still like that here because we it's legalized. If you go to a head shop to buy marijuana or anything like that, they are stoned. They got the music going. They don't care.
I love it. Wow. I haven't been in one for a long time. So my store was 73 to 83. Um, and so I was drinking, but I wasn't really drinking excessively, I didn't think. Once I was out in clubs with the band, my drinking escalated. And I was a daily pot smoker, but I also was a periodic drinker. So I would drink to oblivion. I would drink to blackouts. And it wasn't very noticeable because I was surrounded by these people in this head shop, or people who were out in the clubs with me, or people who were at band rehearsal getting loaded. And so my drinking didn't really stick out. Um,
Yeah.
the thing that made my drinking really obvious was that I about 10 years into my marriage, I decided that I wanted to start dating. And so I just I sorry, my phone's starting to ring. I needed to put it on
Oh,
airplane
it's
mode.
okay. No
Um,
worries.
so I would be out in the clubs and I'd be loaded. And then I started having consequences, like I would be performing and be slurring. I'd be driving home drunk with one eye open, just all the typical stuff drunks do.
Mm.
But everybody around me was drinking the same way.
So
So,
you don't
stand out.
notice. I was in the same kind of scenario because my mom left my dad when I was of drinking age. And so he was a single guy, and he's like, oh, we kind of turned our house into a frat house because he was like, ooh, this is kind of my time of in my life to, enjoy myself. And so even though I had hit an 18 wheeler drunk, we'd still pick up a 2-4 coming home from court and have a party. Like it was
Got it.
the same kind of thing. It wasn't noticed right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah, nobody.
Right away. It was eventually, obviously, but not right away.
Right. Well, and the thing is, I kind of gave my husband at the time an ultimatum. I told him I wanted to start dating. And so I checked out a book from the library called um, Open Marriage. And I, asked him if he wanted to read it or if he wanted me to give him a book report. But he agreed to an open marriage. And what happened is I kind of immediately met up with this guy who was a friend of a friend, and he and I started seeing each other, and I just became obsessed with him to the point where I couldn't quite get enough. So I just moved him into our house with our two children. We had two daughters, and, it was obnoxious. And my parents lived a couple blocks away, and they didn't raise me like that. Do you know what I mean? They were married.
Mm,
They, my dad passed away after my mom and he had been married like 52 years. So these were not the values that I was raised with. My parents were not alcoholic. My mother died never having even tasted alcohol. And my dad was just like, a casual drinker. But anyway, so it turns out that that boyfriend was alcoholic. No shock, right? I mean, who else is going to agree to this kind of crazy thing? Come live with me and my husband and our two kids. He's like, great. So, um, anyway, his drinking is what led me to my recovery because I became so obsessed with trying to get him to behave and trying to get him to not drink so much
chasing him
because,
down, and you're realizing what you're doing to yourself.
right,
Kind of
right.
happened to me with my daughter's father, and I realized the same thing. I'm like,
Yeah, I,
the
I
light
don't,
bulb goes on a little bit.
right. I don't like the way you're acting, right. And so my sister actually came over one day and she threw a book at me and she said, everybody is sick of you, and this crazy relationship. Read this book and stop bothering all of us with your drama. And it was a book that talked about all these dysfunctional relationships. It was called Women Who Love Too Much. And at the
I've
end of
heard of
every
that one.
haven't you? Yeah. And so at the end of the every chapter, it was kind of like, and then she went to Al-Anon, and had never heard of Al-Anon. I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know how to pronounce it. But so I started going to Al-Anon, and I was going there for about 2 years, and then I had ended up divorced. My husband had finally decided, he'd had enough.
Hmm.
And so he moved out and we got divorced. And I was doing the steps in Al Anon. So the 12 steps that are part of all the alcohol recovery groups.
Yeah. So
They're the
I've never
same
been to
steps.
Al-Anon. I've been to AA. Are they the
Ah,
are they the
yeah,
same, the 12 steps
same
in
12 steps.
yeah.
Yes. And so I was writing a fourth step in my Al Anon program. And it was kind of
Hmm.
like
The
if you
four
do a
step.
searching, yeah, you do a searching and fearless moral inventory. There was my alcoholism, in flashing neon. And so at this point, I had decided I was moving to California. I um, had always wanted to be an actor, that was my goal in life. And so I thought I was coming to Hollywood to pursue my dreams. And I uh, announced it to everyone. And my children announced that they weren't coming with me. And they were
Hmm.
13 and 16.
That's hard on a mom.
I know it killed me.
Yeah, that's hard on a mom. I couldn't imagine because my kids are little still, and they tell me they love me when I cry. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah.
Mhm. Right. So, yeah, I couldn't believe it, but I mean, looking back on it makes perfect sense. I mean, they just had enough,
Hmm.
and they said, no, we're staying with dad, because their dad is, he's a really good guy. He's very kind. He did not deserve the wife that he got, for sure. Um,
Same with my dad.
mm, got it. Yeah. So anyway, they stayed back there. I came out here. I started going to AA meetings as well as Al-Anon. And yeah, fortunately for me, one day at a time, I've been able to stay sober almost 35 years. I go to a ton of meetings. I was in a meeting this morning at 7 a.m. I go to a meeting almost every day. Sometimes it's AA, sometimes it's Al Anon. And, I don't speak for those programs. Everybody, it's an anonymous program, but it has definitely saved my life. Today, I have the best life I could imagine. I'm married to a sober alcoholic who has 2 more years of sobriety than I do. He's 12 years younger than me, but he has 2 more years of
Who
sobriety.
cares?
No, he and I just celebrated
Life's short.
25. Yeah, we just celebrated 25 years being married, which is my personal best. And yeah, we've gone to meetings all over the world. My youngest daughter lives in Sydney, Australia, or she lives south of Sydney, but she's been living there for 10 years. And we were visiting with her over the holidays. And we went to a meeting in Melbourne, Australia.
That's
Um,
cool.
it is. It's
It's just an
fantastic.
interesting, different culture and still the same. You can still connect on that level. I
Right.
love it.
Yeah. And my relationship with both of my kids has been totally healed because I've gone through, the suggested steps of recovery and I've made amends for my bad behavior. Um, my oldest daughter lives here in the LA area, and she was texting me earlier today. I'm going to be babysitting my 11-year-old granddaughter on Thursday because she doesn't have school, and her mom's a teacher, so they're in different school districts. And so I'll be, we have a very healthy and really tight relationship with my granddaughter, and both my kids have really turned out fantastic. They both have really good career paths, and they've overcome their bad parenting, my bad parenting, and they've forgiven me. They wrote beautiful messages to me in my 75th birthday cards recently, because my birthday was just last month. And
Happy belated.
yeah, my husband and I called our we were in Australia and
Mm.
Tasmania for New Year's, Christmas and New Year's, and we called the trip 100 Years of Life and Love because it was a celebration of our 25th anniversary and my 75th birthday.
Oh, I
So
love it. That kind of stuff is touching to me. I don't know.
it was
I'm sentimental.
right. And today I just spent, let's see, 11, 12, 4 hours at a theater. Um, I, I, I became in sobriety, I became a special education teacher. And I did that for 23 years, which is something I had no training for. I was told when I got sober that I needed to suit up and show up for whatever God put in front of me. And so it was ironic. I got a job teaching um, kids, and my kids weren't here, right? So my
Hmm.
kids were back in Indiana, and I was spending every day with everyone else's kids. And
Yeah.
it was kind of an amazing amends to the universe for being such a
Hmm.
lousy mom. And
I
then when
don't think you should call yourself a lousy mom because honestly, it's bad negative self-talk and you had a disease. It isn't always your fault for your actions. It is a disease. Don't be like, I don't know, don't be so hard on yourself, you know. You
well,
weren't
I
a
don't think
bad
anybody.
mom. You just had a disease.
Well, for sure, but my children suffered from it because I never prioritized them. It was always more
Mm.
important to me to, be getting loaded or
Which
hanging out with
I
my boyfriend.
understand.
Yeah,
I've like done things that I regret more than anything else in the world, like being like blackout drunk and not like my daughter's laying in my bed in a t-shirt with like no diaper on, and I'm like, what the heck, right? Like I get it. I've had
yeah,
like the children's aid called on me because I had my mistakes. So I
yeah,
get it, but I'm just saying that like they've forgiven me as they always will as long as you maintain that sobriety. But
right.
I just don't think you need to say that you're a bad mom because that's still You weren't
Oh, I think
bad. You were sick and you weren't thinking clearly. You weren't yourself. That's all.
right. Well, I think one of the slogans is, we don't regret the past and we don't wish to shut the door on it. So I'm
Mhm.
happy to acknowledge I was not the world's best mom. I
Well,
did
oh,
plenty
I
of good
acknowledge
things.
it too. I get
Yeah,
you. I just think that, that's all. I
of
just think
course.
it's harsh when you say it. I'm like, don't say.
Exactly. No, and I appreciate that. I love your perspective on that. Um, but so the thing is, today I've been retired from teaching now for 11 years, and I've been able to pursue acting, which is the thing I came out here to do.
Hmm.
And today I was at the theater for 4 hours doing a rehearsal for my understudy. I'm in the play called Bill W. and Dr. Bob. And it's
Oh, that's awesome.
isn't it incredible? So it is about the founding of Alcoholics Anonymous. I play Dr. Bob's wife, Ann Smith. It's an amazing role. It's
That's amazing
just,
because the
mm,
first time I realized I was an alcoholic was from watching a movie about Bill W. and how he
ex-
started it. And it was
right?
a quote at the end by Lois Wilson. And she talks about how our hearts can forgive and understand where our minds cannot. And it's been something that's followed me my whole life. And it's how I knew
Yes.
I was an alcoholic. And my 6 month chip is taken off of Bill W.'s grave. And I was told to bite it, and if I can bite through it, then I can drink,
Yeah, you can
basically.
drink anytime you finish chewing that chip, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, so that's what I do today. Our
that's
play
awesome.
opened February 15th, I think, and we've had sold out houses every weekend since then. I was in the same play 2 years ago, and it ran for 17 weeks. So I
Oh
don't know
wow.
how long it will run this time, but the director who had hired me for the show the first time called me back to do it again, and it's such an honor and such a
Mm-hmm.
privilege to be able to, you know, portray this woman who had such an impact on so many lives because she and Lois are the ones that started Al-Anon, and so yeah, that's my
I
deal
think it's such a synchronicity in your life too, you know what I mean? Like
for
that's
sure.
the play that you're in, out of all
Yes,
the plays possible. You're
right.
you're in the one about the fact like the founder of AA and the story about it and everything like that.
Isn't it wild?
And
It's
it's how you got sober and everything. It's wild how things work
yes.
like that.
And the
But
people who come to see it are just blown away. Sometimes a meeting will buy the whole theater and it's their whole
that's a good
posse.
idea because it's like having a speaker meeting,
Right,
right?
right. Mhm.
But I should let you go
I,
because I got two little screamers that I can hear. So, do you have anything else that you'd like to say to everybody? And before we go, I will put everything, if you email it to me,
I
in the
will.
show notes. So, your show and your book. And I will put it in the show notes just so that everybody is aware of how they can see either this play or read either your book because I just want to bring success to the people who deserve the success.
Thank
And I just like to pass that on. And anyways, any last words before I let you go? Sorry.
Well, the only other thing I would say to your listeners is if you're having a hard time getting sober or staying sober, um, you can just do what has worked for so many of us, which is go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps. It seems to be, the thing that has worked for more people than anything else that's ever been invented that I'm aware of. So,
I agree on that one. It really is the one that has helped, I feel like, the most people over anything. So I 100% agree on that. I feel like because we all understand each other instead of talking to a counselor, they almost provide you with better advice than a counselor would because they've experienced it and they've walked a mile in your shoes. So
Right.
I agree.
Yep. It's yeah, my primary purpose today is just to stay sober and help another alcoholic. Or I sponsor a lot of women in Al-Anon as well. And everything else that I do, I look at it as the thing I'm doing between meetings. So I've got an audition tomorrow for a commercial. It would be lovely to book that commercial, but it doesn't matter whether I book it or not. I'm able to just say, well, that commercial is the thing I do before I go to my regular Wednesday night meeting. I'll go to the commercial, I'll do the audition, and then I'll go to my meeting. And it puts everything in its true perspective if you look at it as the thing you're doing between meetings.
I like that. That is good too. Well, thank you, Joyce, so much for coming on and sharing so much, and also sharing so much of just your little tips and tricks, like what you just said.
I
So,
appreciate
thank you so much for sharing your story. I appreciate you being so open and honest with us.
Thank you, Jasmine. Best of everything to you.
Same to you. Thank you very much.